Hello everyone, this video we will start working on the game view. In the game view we will operate the different components of the game. Please refer to the previous videos to remind yourself of the different elements of the game and how it works and the user interface that we intended to have. So building the game view itself, we need to have a start game button, and then and the purpose of the start game button, as in our analysis and design before, user click the start game and the game will play a random sound out of all the available files, and the user will be given different buttons to select which note that sound is, and then the game will give the user feedback whether this is a correct answer or incorrect answer, and then play another sound and keep doing this for a number of turns. You can have turns 3, 5, 10, anything, but there is a number of turns, and then at the end the number of correct answers divided by the number of turns give you the percentage score, and the game retains the score that the user has achieved, and there will be a statistics button that we have here that leads to another view that displays the scores. So our goal in this and coming few videos is to build the game, and then after that we'll build the statistics game. So first let's start with the first button, and we'll have that button here, and we'll call this start game. Then we need to have a button for each of the notes, and you can do all of the interface right now and then start implementing piece by piece, or you can say, well, when the user clicks start button we need to play a random sound, let me get that first, then I'll move to the next thing. In other words, you have a task that you need to accomplish and you start dividing this task into smaller pieces. So the task is to build the game view, and the smaller pieces is, let's start first with the start game and the generation of the random button, then let's work on the feedback, then let's work on the turns and the responsiveness, then let's work on the saving, as if we're dividing this into 4 sub pieces or 4 sub projects. So I'm gonna just have the start button and implement that the user click the start button, a random sound out of those will be played. So let me get the assistant editor here for that view. And make some room. So for this button to have an action, I need to connect it as an action. So I connect this button with an action here, and the action I'm gonna call it start game. And when the game plays, once the user start the run of the turns, I don't want the user to keep clicking start game. So I want to later on have the functionality that I can either change the text of the game or disable that game button until the game is over. So I'm going to have an argument, and that argument I want to pass on the button as an argument. This way I don't have to make the button as an outlet, and I can use the argument to access a reference to the button and change the different attributes of the button. So connect to the action. So now I have the button action. The next thing that I need to do is I need to have a collection to hold all the files so that I can generate a random number out of them. So I'm going to create an instance variable here that represent the collection of all the notes. So ns array star, and then I'm gonna call this notes, and this will be a collection of the notes files, or the path to the file. And I'm going to add multiples here as we go along and start implementing different pieces. We learned from the help view that I also need the AV audio player, and to use the audio player I need to import the AV Foundation framework, and then add the audio player, AV audio player, and I'm gonna call this player. Alright, and I need also one more thing, which is a string to hold the current note, the note that's being played. Maybe I can call it current note, path of the note that is being played. Since this note will be played at random, and I'm gonna need that to check if the user made the correct answer or not, I need to keep track of that note across the different methods or actions in the class. The reason I'm making those variables here, not inside the implementation modules, is I need to give them the full scope. So now let's switch to the implementation. No, actually I don't need that anymore, so I can move to the implementation here. I don't have any properties, so I can just ignore, I don't need to synthesize anything. I have my StartGame here, and I have my array of all the path files. And what I want to do when the view loads, I want to load all my files, and I'm going to bring the files here. These are all my 12 MP3 files. I want to load all those files into my array or into my collection in here. So I can, I'll do that. You can choose where to do that. You can do it anywhere. But since I'm going to use that through my game, I may just load it one time when the view load and keep it with me so that the user can play as many games and I don't have to load the files all the time. So in the ViewLoad, and I will be doing many things in the ViewLoad, but at this time I need to load the path to the files, to the MP3 files, into the array, the notes array or collection. And we have done this before multiple times now, loading content of file. And to do this, we need to create the array, and we need to load the path of resources into the array. So so the first thing is, if I make this number 1, I can say this is 1 1, and what I want to do, and I don't need that anymore, so I'm just gonna make some room here. And the first step is to retrieve a reference to the bundle, the app bundle. This is NS bundle. I'm gonna call it bundle equal, and then send the message to NS bundle and say give me the a reference to the main bundle. Once you got a reference to the main bundle, we need to allocate the array in memory and initialize it. Allocate memory for the notes array and initialize it. So I say my notes equal, and then I send to NS array and say allocate, and then init, which will initialize the array. And then step number 3 is to use the reference to the main bundle to retrieve the path to all files that end with MP3. So I will say that notes equal, oops, sorry. So I will say that notes equal bundle, and then I use the path for resource, and there is one for a collection of file that returns arrays, path for resources of type, and that is in directory, and we don't have a directory here, so that will be empty. So what is the type of the file, which is the extension of the files you want to load, is MP3. And what's the directory? These are not in a directory, so we retrieve this like that. So that gives me all the current files and all the 12 files that end with MP3 will be loaded into that collection. The other thing that I need to do is to initialize or allocate the player, the audio player in memory. So I'll say player equal, and I'll ask the AV audio player to allocate. So this is the initialization that I need to do at this time. There will be more things that come here as we start implementing different parts. In the StartGame, the purpose of the StartGame method, and I'm gonna make like a group comment like that. The purpose of a StartGame is to initialize each game played, which means set the turns, set the environment, like setting the buttons and anything like that, and start a game. But the game itself, where we make the random number, display it to the user, figure out how many turns have we played so far, and when the number of turns is over, stop the game from playing, and all of that, that really is not part of starting the game. That is part of playing the game. So I'm going to separate these two in order to make my program more modular and more organized. So to start that, I will come here after the end of that module, and I will define another module called the play game. And play game is responsible for playing one game, which means managing the turns, playing random sound, and ending the game, calculating the score, and so on. So this will be a method that, so it starts with a dash, and then we don't need that method to return anything. The name of the method is play game, and I don't need to send the method any parameters. So no arguments for that method, just the body of that method. So what a StartGame will do some setups, but will send a message to to this object, the self, to play game. So it will basically say self play game. It's kind of delegating the responsibility to play game. And then play game will need to check the turns, and we're going to manage the turns later on, and then need to randomize the notes and play a random sound. So how do we do the random thing, and how we manage this? Now, Random meaning I need to go to those files and pick one of them at random. I can randomize integers. I can randomize numbers. If you have a number from 0 to 10, and I can say pick one of those numbers at random, there are libraries that can give me a random number out of those. But how can I relate those numbers to the files? Here comes the concept of the collection. The notes collection is organized into like kind of boxes in memory. Every box has an index, and that index is a number. The first one is index 0, so when we say path is for resources, it's going to go to the bundle and load the first file, and that's 0. Then the second one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on to all the files that are MB3. So I can randomize the index of this collection. And if I randomize the index of the collection, then I can use that random index to retrieve a path to one of those files. That path will be at random, and then I can play that path. So first I need to generate a random number based on the count of elements in the collection. So the collection that I have that has the notes, how many notes I have, and I can say integer how many notes exist, and I can say ask the notes to give me the count. So the count returns the number of objects currently in the array. So that gives me how many notes exist. Then I can say random index. I can call on a library called arc4random, which it's a function that exists in the library that you can call it, and it will give you back a random number between 0 and 1. Then you can play with that number in order to get it between 0 and the number that you want. So I'm going to say modulus, which is the remainder of the divider of that random number by how many they are, and that will give me a random number between 0, which is the beginning of the index, and how many nodes currently exist. So if you have 10 files, it will be between 0 and 10. If you have 15 files, it will be between 0 and 15. Then I can get the node. So current node. So I can get the current node by saying current node equal, and I can call on the nodes, the collection, and say give me the object, which is the path, and say that exists at the random index. So this 3 will give you the node at a random index. Now that you have the path, we'll do the same thing we did in the help view. Use that path to the current node to generate a URL, and then use that URL to play a random sound. So generate a URL for the random node. So I will say ns URL, and then I will call this file URL. And I will, we did that in the help ns URL, and I will say file URL with path, and the path is the current node. Then load the sound file to the player. So I will say player, and I will ask the player to initialize itself with the contents of URL, and give it the file URL, and in the error do nothing. and then finally play the sound. So send the message to the player and say play. Okay. Now, for demonstration purposes, I need to know what kind of sound got played, so I'm going to log the path to the file so that I can show you and we can see that we successfully randomized the note every time the user click the start or every time the play game is called. So log the current note, and we use something called nslog. And nslog logs a string, so we use a string with format to specify that string. And I'm just gonna use I'm gonna say that display a string, and that string is the current note. This gives you an opportunity to see what this current note is, or what's the path to this file look like. Okay, so this is the play game at this initial stage, or this very small project out of the set of tasks that we want, which is playing random sound. We'll see if it will do the job we want or not. We'll wait for the simulator to load. The help still works as is, and you can go back. Now we have a start game, so you click on the start game, and we heard a sound here, and need to show the output so you can see that. So here it is. I brought in the output window, and this is the path starting from the slash. All of this, that is the content of the current note. So you see it played the G note, and we clicked again. This time it played the C note, then the G again, A, B, C. I'm looking down here, and you can see the note that's being played. So in a sense, there is some randomization every time play game is played, and that's what we were looking for. We'll stop here, and then this is our very first task. In the next video, we will implement a turn, so that when the user click on the start game, the game will play a random sound for a specific number of times, and then it will stop. Thank you.